Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are getting into something that's a real paradox of modern life. It's this question of why so many highly intelligent, well-educated, successful people, they just really struggle with their own personal finances.
Yeah, and for this deep dive, we're really centering on this painful truth that you see in books like The Psychology of Money. And look, if you're searching for stock tips or some kind of perfect formula, this isn't it. We're talking about the human element. The core idea, which is so frustrating, is that doing well with money, it has very little to do with how smart you are. It has almost everything to do with how you behave.
And that distinction, behavior versus intelligence, that's really the mountain we have to climb today, isn't it? Because we treat money like it's this hard science, all governed by math and objective rules. But the sources just keep hammering this point home. Finance is much, much closer to psychology. And behavior, well, that's driven by our emotions, our histories, and it's just incredibly hard to teach, especially to people who think their intellect should make them immune to making mistakes.
Precisely. You can understand the rational math of investing perfectly, but very few people are making huge financial decisions just looking at a cold spreadsheet. So many more of us are making them based on, lessons we learned at the dinner table growing up or the kind of economy we came of age in. Your financial outcome really isn't about your IQ. It's so much more about your personal history with money.
Okay, so to really bring this to life, we have to start with what the sources use as this perfect, almost cinematic contrast. It's the story of the janitor and the executive. It just perfectly illustrates how behavior can absolutely demolish education and background.
Right. So let's start with Ronald Reed. He was born in rural Vermont, and for his time and place, it was a huge deal that he was the first in his family to graduate high school.
And I read he had to hitchhike to campus every day.
He did? Hitchhike. His whole career was the definition of humble. Yeah. He worked for 25 years at a gas station, and then another 17 years as a part-time janitor. He never earned a big salary.
So you look at a life like that and you just assume, okay, a quiet retirement, maybe some Social Security. But when Ronald Reed died at age 92, the world found out he had a secret. He had quietly amassed an $8 million fortune.
$8 million. And it wasn't some lottery win. He just followed these three unbelievably simple, purely behavioral rules. One, he just saved more than he spent. He kept his standard of living incredibly low. Two, he invested what he saved consistently into stable, reliable companies, blue chip stocks. And three, and this is the most important part, he's just relentlessly patient. He let compounding run wild for decades. And the result? This quiet janitor left over $6 million to his local hospital and library.
And then you contrast that with Richard Fiscone. Fiscone was the polar opposite. He was Harvard-educated, MBA, rises up to become this high-flying Merrill Lynch executive, praised for his business savvy and sound judgment. He was so successful, he retired in his 40s.
And he lived a life that just screamed success. He borrowed huge amounts of money to maintain this enormous, 18,000 square foot mansion in Connecticut. It had 2 pools, 2 elevators, 11 bathrooms.
Wow.
And the monthly maintenance bill alone was over $90,000. He wasn't just trying to be rich, he was trying to look rich.
So then the 2008 financial crisis hits, and all that massive debt, all those illiquid status symbols, they turned his life toxic almost overnight. The guy who was a poster child for financial judgment. He files for bankruptcy. His mansion gets sold in foreclosure for a fraction of what he paid.
And that right there, that's the painful conclusion. That's the whole point of our deep dive. The difference between the janitor with $8 million and the Harvard exec who went bankrupt wasn't intelligence. It wasn't education. It was pure behavior.
Yeah.
Reed was patient. Fiscone was greedy. It's why financial success is a soft skill. You'd never see a janitor outperform a Harvard-trained surgeon in the operating room. But in money, this kind of thing happens all the time because emotional discipline just trumps technical smarts.
That contrast, it just forces the question, wait a minute, if patience and compounding are the secret, why do smart people actively work against themselves? If you know the rules, why would you ignore them? Okay, let's unpack this. What are the psychological forces that make highly educated people choose these, ruinous paths?
Well, the biggest one, especially now in our hyper-connected world, is envy. Modern capitalism is just great at 2 things, generating incredible wealth and at the same time generating incredible envy. because we can see everyone else's highlight reel instantly.
Yeah, it sets this impossibly high bar for social comparison. And the sources really stress how damaging this is for people who get some success early on. I mean, you might be totally financially secure, but now you're in a different league. Like, say you're a rookie baseball player making $500,000 a year. Statistically, you're rich. But your entire peer group is now Mike Trout making $36 million, so you feel poor.
Exactly. And that pressure, that need to chase bigger and bigger numbers just for prestige, it forces smart people to take completely irrational risks. It stops being about securing your own future and starts being about winning this unwinnable social game.
And we see these spectacular failures at the elite level. I mean, look at Rajat Gupta, the former CEO of McKinsey. The man was already worth over $100 million. I mean, he was set for life by any definition, but he risked everything, his reputation, his freedom, for an extra $17 million in an insider trading scheme. That's a tiny fraction of what he already had.
The logic there, it wasn't about financial need, it was about emotional want. He wanted to get into the billionaire club. He just had no sense of enough. Or
Right.
Bernie Madoff. I mean, even before the Ponzi scheme, his legitimate market-making business was making millions. Both of these men, brilliant and successful, threw it all away because they could not stop playing that comparison game. That hunger for more will push anyone, no matter how smart, right past the point of sensible risk.
I wonder what that feels like, though, in the moment. How does that emotional choice actually play out in a real financial decision? I mean, beyond just greed, the sources point to these classic behavioral biases that just trip up smart people all the time. The first one is loss aversion.
Loss aversion is fascinating.
Yeah.
It's just proof that we're not rational. Psychologically, the pain you feel from losing money is about twice as powerful as the joy you feel from gaining the same amount. And for a smart person, someone with a healthy ego, admitting a loss can feel like admitting you were wrong, which is even more painful.
Right, which leads to hanging on to bad decisions. You hold on to a losing stock hoping it'll just break even, so you don't have to actually admit you made a mistake. And that same reluctance, that's the root of the sunk cost fallacy too, isn't it?
Absolutely. The sunk cost fallacy is just continuing to pour money or time into something, a failing business, a bad investment, simply because you've already put so much in. You refuse to accept that the previous effort was a waste, so you end up doubling down on a mistake. An intelligent person knows that money is gone, but the ego demands to be proven right.
And then when you layer that on top of herd mentality, it becomes just devastating, especially during market bubbles. A highly educated person can look at an asset and know rationally that the price is insane. But then they look around, they see everyone else getting rich, and that psychological fear of missing out, it just overrides all their analysis.
And that leads directly to the danger of playing the wrong game. This is so critical. You have long-term investors, people who are playing a game measured in decades, like Ronald Reed, who suddenly start taking their cues from short-term day traders. People whose game is just about quick profits. When you shift your time horizon like that, all rational thinking goes out the window. And when the market inevitably turns, that long-term investor gets crushed because they adopted a strategy that was completely at odds with their own goals.
So if financial success isn't about being the smartest person in the room, and it's definitely not about getting the highest short-term returns, what is the secret weapon?
Well, the key, according to all the sources, is it's pretty counterintuitive. It's deliberately unexciting. It's a commitment to that slow compounding path. And it's all enabled by a strategy that is focused only on one thing: survival.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's break down the math of compounding. Most people think it's sort of a straight line, but it's exponential. And the key ingredient isn't skill, it's time.
Look at Warren Buffett. His skill is legendary, we all know that. But his secret is longevity. It's easy to forget that 99.9% of his net worth was accumulated after his 50th birthday.
That's an insane statistic.
It is. If he had started at 30 and retired at 60 like a normal person, very few of us would have ever heard of him. His skill gave him the good return, sure. But his time, the fact he kept at it for over 75 years, that's the real driver. Longevity is the magic wand.
But longevity only works if you can actually stick around. And the market is basically designed to try and shake you out of the game. Which brings us to the core strategy for staying wealthy, survival. And that's less about high returns and more about a mix of frugality and paranoia.
Yeah, paranoia is a good word for it. There are very few potential gains that are worth the risk of being completely wiped out. Survival requires what's called a margin of safety. It's just having room for error. And this isn't just about owning different stocks. It's about having a cash buffer, a frugal lifestyle, and being okay with deliberately missing out on things that require you to take on too much risk.
It's the ultimate form of being anti-fragile, right? Because
Hmm.
we often think of having a margin of safety as being, I don't know, too conservative, but the sources argue it's the exact opposite. It's what actually raises your odds of success because you can survive the inevitable downturns and short-term misery. Those downturns are just. They're the price of admission you have to pay for the huge long-term returns the market offers.
Think about Bill Gates when Microsoft was just getting started. He's all about aggressive growth, but he had a rule. He required the company to keep enough cash on hand to pay a full year's worth of payroll, even if they had zero income. That wasn't a conservative choice. It was a survival choice. It ensured they could keep playing the game when everyone else was being forced to fold.
And that survival mindset, it leads to maybe the most profound idea in all of this. That we shouldn't aim to be coldly rational with our money. We should just aim to be reasonable.
That distinction is so important. Academic finance, it's always looking for the mathematically optimal strategy, the perfect rational path on paper. But for a real person, that optimal strategy might mean being 100% in volatile stocks. And that's just not emotionally sustainable. The first time the market crashes, that rational investor is going to panic, sell everything, and ruin the whole plan.
So instead of the best plan, you just want the plan that lets you sleep at night. The reasonable approach might mean holding a bit more cash than is optimal, or investing 80% instead of 100. It's mathematically suboptimal in the short term, but that reasonable plan is the one you're actually going to stick with for decades. And sticking with a good plan is way more important than having a perfect plan you abandon.
Which brings us to the ultimate reward. It's not about accumulation, it's about control. The highest dividend that money pays isn't a fancy car or a big house. It's the ability to wake up every single morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. That control over your own time, that's the true measure of wealth.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening, trying to build a resilient financial life? It means success is mostly about mastering your own internal emotional world. It's about taming your envy, managing your fear of loss, and just embracing the slow, boring path of survival. You have to define the long-term game you are playing, because if you don't, the herd is going to define a short-term game for you, and it will probably be to your detriment.
And just remember that true wealth is so often what you don't see. It's the car not bought, the income not spent. It's the cash buffer sitting there giving you options. People often chase wealth because they want status and admiration from others, but real respect. That comes from things like humility and kindness, not from the horsepower of your engine or the square footage of your house.
Which brings us to a final thought for reflection, something for you to mull over after this deep dive.
If true wealth is what you don't see, that unspent money providing you with flexibility, with independence, then what luxury or symbol of success are you currently buying that is actively forcing you to sacrifice the very control and freedom, the very flexibility you claim to value most?